Ooh, it is time for another roasting of my comment section, this time a lippy leftist who was on cloud 9 level of unrealistic idealism. So this was on the oil video I did, one who accused me of being reductionist because I think government is the problem and it needs to hit the bricks. Wonder why? Culminating in being called a Sargon knockoff stuck in the Gamergate era. I think that last part was supposed to be an insult, but considering I'm a fan of Sargon and I wasn't even politically engaged in any capacity during Gamergate, I'm not exactly bothered by the statement. But anywho, I will say I did get a bit unruly in the replies because if I see people chucking empty slogans or advocating for things that have catastrophically bad failure rates, well, that indicates to me a mind that is void of any historical knowledge, so let the trolling begin. First off, being called reductionist by leftists for wanting government to bugger off, please explain to me, you lefty git, how thinking that bowing down arse towards the heavens, turning towards Washington and chanting Hail Nancy is any more reductionist than mine. Coming from the person who said they at least provide solutions, which they don't, by the way. Anyone can read the thread, it's still there. It's just cliched bitching babble you'd expect from a leftist who can't even spell economics, let alone define it. It sounds like a Bernie speech with better language. But a couple of things I want to point out. Why didn't the supposed price gouging occur under Trump? I mentioned that. Do you think they addressed it? No, of course not, because I don't know what the hell supply and demand means. Oh, and by the way, someone asked me, why is America's oil kerfuffle affecting Europe? Well, very simple. If America is no longer energy independent, it isn't selling oil in the same capacity as before and is now buying from likely the same people you are also buying from, well, then the supply shrank and the demand went up, ergo a price increase. Very basic stuff. But if you are still simping for government intervention post the Trump era, you are straight up fucking stupid. There is no other way to say that. Look at the damage it's done in less than 2 years. You want more of that? Why? You're talking about a steward who goes on camera talking about doing everything to alleviate inflation and oil prices, which they willingly started, so why the hell they're going to stop it, heaven only knows, who doesn't cut government spending and is cutting oil leases. Did the person address any points I made during the video about investing or market stability? Again, no, of course not. Oh, but you're just simping or bashing corporations as long as you can make Biden look bad. I don't need to make Biden look bad. His handlers and a rusty bike does that for him. But feel free to point to me where I simp for corporations. I didn't even do that in the oil video. Merely went through very elementary explanations of supply and demand, environmental regulations, and how bad government policy puts a damper on investment, which clearly went over someone's fucking head. But as far as why I am against government, as Thomas Sowell said, there is a history to it. Have you ever looked at what happens when the government intervenes versus when they don't intervene? Perfect example, the smoot-hole tariffs that happened under Herbert Hoover, which was designed, supposedly, to protect American labor and encourage local production by imposing tariffs on foreign imports. All the economists told them, this is a really bad fucking idea. It's not going to do that. You are going to spark a trade war. What happened? Oh, they sparked a trade war, and unemployment shot up into double digits and remained there for the entire damn decade. Because it turns out if you can't sell in the American market, people are reluctant to buy from it as well. Funny how that goes both ways. As a matter of fact, let's hear from the man himself.
When I interviewed George Gilder about 6 or 7 months ago, George Gilder known to both of us, he contended that with the right policies, the economy, coming back to the international scene in a moment, but the economy would actually turn around quite quickly. The American economy can be revived quite quickly. Cut taxes, peel back regulation, and you'd see another version of the early 1980s. You agree?
Yes.
All we have to do is get out of the way in a certain sense.
Yes. I mean, there was when Warren Harding took office in 1921, the unemployment rate was around 12%. Warren Harding did absolutely nothing. As the government's revenue fell because of the downturn, he cut government spending. Now both those things are things that drive the Keynesians crazy.
Right.
The following year, unemployment had fallen to about half that level.
Within a year.
Yes, and then a year after that, it fell yet again. There is a history. The first time the federal government intervened in the economy to get us out of a downturn was in 1930. Now, which means that for more than 150 years, the federal government just stood by and twiddled their thumbs while the economy recovered on its own. And all that time, there was never a depression as bad as the 1930s depression, where there was all kinds of intervention beginning with Herbert Hoover helping help us, and then amplified by Franklin D. Roosevelt. So in terms of you looking at what happened as a matter of fact, again, there was no Federal Reserve prior to 1914. The Federal Reserve was created in order to, one, cut back on bank failures, reduce inflation, and prevent deflation. All of those things reached historic highs never seen before under the Federal Reserve. So the idea was wonderful. It's only the reality that didn't cooperate.
The idea was wonderful, it's only reality that didn't cooperate. That line is the slogan for every leftist scheme dreamt up in all of human history. It drives me fucking insane when people advocate for more regulations under the guise of their own perception of morality. Newsflash, genius, and I can't believe I have to explain this to people, your morality does not mean dick if someone else has to act on it. For the love of all that is holy, stop looking at what policies are supposed to do and look at what they actually end up doing. Why the hell would these corrupt politicians, who are propped up by big business, mind you, actually help you? Where is the incentive for them to do so? Why must big business be counteracted with big government? You are creating more power for them to buy off. Here is a radical idea. How about you make it easier for competition to emerge? Introduce some real free market capitalism instead of government intervention stifling the market. Say what you like about my so-called reductionist proposal of government needs to get the hell out of the way. At least mine is based in reality. It's mere common sense. If you have less problems prior to government intervention, your natural go-to response would be to get rid of the thing that put you in this worse condition in the bloody first place. I know, very big brain take here. And I know this because I read books. Read a short book called Myth of the Robber Barons by Burton Folsom Jr. if you want to see utterly wasteful government spending. The amount of money the state wasted during America's founding industries during the beginning of the last century is fucking insane. Not to mention, you have President Woodrow Wilson, who left office with the US debt sitting at around $21 billion, and over 700% increase over the $2.9 billion when Teddy Roosevelt left office. He borrowed $30 billion to get into the First World War. Lord knows why. It gave rise to the Bolsheviks and the Nazis. And I could be wrong, but I think that debt still hasn't been repaid. Again, I've said this over and over. People do not give a damn about corporations and their profit as long as they themselves are doing well. This is why no one gave a damn about corporate profit during Trump's reign, because the economy was roaring during Trump's tenure as president. Oh, look at these corporations making record profits. I know, look at my wallet, so am I. It's great, toodles. That is the reality. I want to ask these people, what is a corporation to you? What do you picture in your head? Because I imagine most people would think, say, Microsoft, Samsung, Amazon, and the likes. I imagine you don't have a problem with business overall, although some leftists undoubtedly will, shrieking at the word profit like a recovering drug addict twitching at the mere mention of smack. But none of these businesses started as massive multinational corporations. So how did they grow? At what point does the business turn into this so-called evil corporation that you speak so poorly of? What is the quantifiable threshold that they crossed that made them so egregious? And what regulation or law would you impose that would mitigate this exactly? Does anyone think these people know any of this? No, because they think vague nonsense like better regulations, whatever the hell that means, instituted by politicians of all people, is going to somehow produce ethical corporate behavior. Tell me something. How many of you guys think that politicians are going to produce ethical corporate behavior? Do you think that is an achievable goal, or do you think that's some very smoked fucking pipe dream? I think the latter. And that is all for today. I will see you all next time.